Hey guys, welcome back to the latest episode of the Growing a Dental Practice podcast. I am your host, Mike Hennon from Patient Boost. In today's episode, I'm joined by Kunal Thakker, CEO and founder of Tooth Club Dental Group. Tooth Club is a growing chain of ultra-modern membership-based dental practices throughout the South. Welcome to the show, Kunal. Thanks for joining me today. How are you?
Hi, Mike. No, thanks for having me. No, I'm good. Having a good day. Nice autumn day today, but no, good. Thank you.
Yeah, we got to autumn very quickly, didn't we? Like 1 minute
I
it's summer.
know. I know. Well, 1 minute it's 40 degrees of heat, and then it's we're getting out the Halloween props, aren't we?
Yeah, so I've already seen Christmas stuff as well, which is just like mad. It's the beginning of October, guys. Just chill out.
Yeah.
Very, very kind of off topic, but when do you guys put out your Christmas decorations?
Do you know what? We wait until December. The practices normally starting around November, but at home it's always December. Yeah, we wait until December,
Oh,
and
nice.
then I think what's the date in January we take them down because my wife's superstitious. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely towards
I
the
can't believe we've
end of the year.
I can't believe we've kicked off the call with talking about Christmas decorations. Anyway, we'll move on. So before we dig into your career your spell as the CEO of the dental group, I'd love to sort of dig into your background because it's not your traditional practice owned background, is it? You're not a dentist.
No, I'm not a dentist, and it's quite funny because when people find out, kind of sometimes when I've hired a dentist 3 months down the line, they figure, oh, you're not a dentist. It's like no. So by way of background, so I studied business and finance at university, and I went into banking. I joined Goldman Sachs on their graduate program, did 10 years there, did 6 years at HSBC. But I always found the job very unfulfilling in that, we were kind of making rich people richer. I didn't feel like we were making a difference. And partway through, I had the opportunity to open up a dental practice in partnership with someone. And that's really where it all started. And but the banking background and I think my own anxieties of going to the dentist and being a patient has really put me in good stead in running a dental group.
Fantastic. The way you just said an opportunity to open a dental practice so casually, it is hilarious. I did had this banking career, and then someone said let's open a dental practice, and it sounds like you're like, yeah, let's go for it. Because how did that happen? Because when you previously told me this, I was like, it wasn't as like purposeful or as planned as I expected.
No, and I think it started off. I felt very unfulfilled at work, and I was like, I need to do something else. And I was like looking out for different business ventures, going into property. And then one night out, I was out with my friends, and we were a lot of alcohol later. My best friend's wife said, "Oh, I want to open a dental practice, but I don't know anything about business." And I was like, "Hey, I know nothing about dentistry, but I also want to open a business." So it was kind of a good duo. So we went into partnership because she was very clinically led. I understood the business aspects of it. So it was kind of a winning combo. Now, it was always supposed to be kind of something we did passively that was kind of in the background. And that kind of, particularly from my perspective, I didn't have to be hands-on. But my business partner got pregnant and she decided that she wanted to take off some time for maternity leave. And literally the day we got the practice keys, it was probably about 2 days later, she's like, I'm going on maternity leave. And I was left to run a dental practice, being clueless.
What?
It was mad, but I loved it. It was a challenge, and actually, what served me really well is and what serves me well today as well is I have really good people supporting me. I had great clinicians that kind of taught me a lot about dentistry, and I've just found a real love for it, a real love, and it stopped being. It didn't feel like work. It didn't feel like a business. It just felt like a passion. So I loved it,
Yeah.
and slowly grew my knowledge. My business partner was still in the background. But it took some time. But we built up 3 practices. We sold them off in 2019. We actually sold off the final 2, and the reason why we sold them off is really we got a good offer, but also I wanted to leave banking, and my only way of leaving banking was to kind of cash out and be able to start up a new dental group and do it bigger and better this time round.
Wow, dude, like. There's so much. Like, I think I say this. I think this is probably my overused phrase, but there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
There is. Well, first of all, I kind of thought you were going to say like your friend also wasn't a dentist, and the two of you just sort of plowed into it. But I'm glad she was.
No, she was.
You've confirmed that all the best business ideas come when you're drunk.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, a couple of bottles of wine later. But
And
also, do you know, it's all about people. It's all about just being
yeah,
surrounded. You know, a lot of the time I get asked about, you know, about how I set up a group. But do you know, I've just been really lucky to be surrounded with really, really smart people that have worked really well with me.
fantastic. And then the other thing that a lot of people listening are going to be quite like awestruck by is that your dental practice that eventually grew to 3 was a side business. Like
Yes.
it wasn't your main income. Like, so
Yeah.
how did you manage like being a full-time banker and
Yeah.
then kind of on this your side hustle being 3 dental practices? Like, how does that work?
Oh, it's hard work. It's hard work, and I've also got a family, a very young family as well. So literally working every hour, God sends, you know, from 6 in the morning. Sneaky toilet breaks, go and use a phone. And I set up our kind of infrastructure to allow me to work remotely. And that really served us well. I know now with COVID, everything's done via video call, but we were a little bit ahead of the curve, and only because banking was always there. Banking was always, you know, using video calls, using kind of remote access, that kind of thing. So that's what allowed me. But I think the team, the people that I hired were fantastic. So I could
Yeah.
really trust them. They were my eyes and ears on the ground. And then every time I did a practice visit, I used to go to every practice every single week. And you know what I mean? It's just spending time with people, because that's where you understand actually what's working, what's not working, how we're going to get better. But just sheer hard work and utilizing every moment of every day. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think that's going to be a recurring theme that the team that you build around you. So obviously you've kind of had a couple of stints as a group owner. So
Yeah.
what do you think what was the biggest lesson from that first stint, the first 3 practices? What did you learn?
Yeah, do you know what? Lots and lots of lessons. So I think firstly I learned about dentistry, but I actually learned that there was a real niche in the market. When you speak to a lot of dental practices, you speak to a lot of dentists or even groups, you know, they like to say we're clinically led. And we're very, very clinically led. Through my time in my first business, which was called Tooth Doctor, was actually the clinical side is a given. It's nothing new. It's not, you know, there's no way anyone can accept anything but the best clinical standards. But where the gap was we weren't patient centric. And when in every other sector and every other industry, it's all about the patient and the patient experience. And that's what I really felt was missing from dentistry, because going to the dentist is a really scary concept. It's, you know, for some people they're really comfortable going. I myself have an anxiety of going to the dentist. I get really scared even to this day. If I'm having a hygiene treatment, I'm sitting in the chair, I'm literally shaking. And it's reminding myself of being a patient and everything that we do in the patient care that we deliver. So the group, I think the biggest lesson was to kind of put the patient at the forefront of everything we do. And that's what's really kind of designed the fundamental foundation of our new group, Tooth Club. You know, it's all about patient-centric care. It's always about thinking about that one anxious patient. We may see 50, 60 patients a day, but actually that one patient has come in once and we probably won't see them for another 6 months. So it's really around delivering the best patient service across the board. In every part of our designs of setting up our practices, our patient journey is always putting the patient's emotions, experience at the front of everything we do.
Fantastic. And I think a lot of dental practice owners could learn from that. And like you say, like a lot of them just think about the clinical side of things, and there's less focus on the patient journey and like how does the patient see every step of the journey, not just like in the chair.
Yeah.
It's like the entire experience. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
So obviously you've said, like, you know, 2019 you decided to
Yes.
sell the 3 practices to
Yep.
kind of help you escape banking. What
Yes.
was the process of selling 3 practices like? Like, how does that work? Who do you go to for 3 practices? Like, tell me
Yeah.
all.
So actually, I sold one off earlier on. You know, when we talk about lessons learned, it wasn't a very successful practice. And it wasn't what it was one of my failures. I'm very open about it. It was one of my open failures. So we sold that one early on. So when we sold the other 2, they were good quality practices. The sales process was interesting. We had a few offers on the table. But it comes down to kind of figuring out who's going to look after your team the best. who will kind of pay you what you want to be paid out without having too much of a tie-in. Because within our practices, because it was me running them, there wasn't a goodwill associated with an individual dentist. So having a 3-year tie-in period made no sense. It's an associate run clinic. So those were the kind of factors that kind of played on my mind when I made the decision about who we were going to sell to. And, people in these practices, they become like your family. You speak to them every day. When you see them, you're at Christmas parties together, you learn about them. So it was really, really important that you look after your people when you're going through a sales process, because it's going to be quite an unsettling time. So those were the kinds of things that I thought of throughout. And I didn't want to be tied in. I think that was the biggest thing. I knew I wanted to go and set up another group, and I wanted to do bigger and better. And to be tied in or restricted for a long period of time didn't work. But of course, sold in December 2019. January 2020, the idea was to start thinking about what we're going to do in terms of the next venture. And we picked a site, actually. We actually picked a squat practice, but COVID hit. And come March, we went into lockdown. Everyone's furloughed. I've just left my nice salary in banking. Dental practices are closed. So a lot of people around me said, "You're crazy. What have you done? Go back to banking." And I had that constant challenge about, you've left a really safe, secure job, a really safe income. You've got a very young family. What are you doing? And but I made the decision that I was going to persevere. I was very clear that this is what I wanted to do. I really enjoyed and loved everything about dentistry. Wanted to go and do that. So we actually built a squat practice through COVID, and we opened when most dental practices could open in 2020, which was around June, July time.
Amazing. See, again, like a lot of people never, none of us saw it coming.
Yeah.
And there's always people in like slightly more awkward situations. And that you must have been like, what is going on here? Like, literally. So did the cash from the sale come in time for that January?
Yeah, it did actually. So we certainly had the cash, but I was quite lucky because we had this, I had the money, but it also meant that I could enjoy COVID lockdown as much as you could. We were making banana bread and going for walks, and we did all that stuff during COVID and the homeschooling. Which was painful, but I was able and I was available to do that kind of stuff, and there was some nice memories made throughout COVID, and there was something nice about the world just shutting down, wasn't there? And of course there was downsides of people passing away, and it was a pandemic, but we try to enjoy the quiet moments, which is very rare.
Absolutely. And I guess you're lucky in some respect that the deal had been done before COVID.
Yes.
And COVID didn't have to drag it on or deplete the cost, the value of the practices. That would have been a messy job, wouldn't it?
It would, but also owning dental practices during that period, I had a huge amount of respect to everyone that did it, and not just dental practices, anyone that owned a business. It was tough, right? It was a really, really tough time. People didn't know about furlough. You're going to have to lay people off. When are we going to be able to reopen? The phones are going off. There's patients in pain. You can't treat them. You have to send them to hospital or to the urgent care centre. So there was a lot of uncertainty, and quite frankly, I was lucky that I didn't have to deal with all of that. But I have a huge amount of respect for all the clinics that did. Managing cash flow, paying rent when you've got no income, and particularly for the private practices, because the NHS was still paying out. For the contract, we had the furlough scheme for employees, but on the private side, I think cash flow would have been really, really hard for people to manage. So huge respect to anyone that was operating a clinic during that period.
Yeah, absolutely. They did a great job. So the practices are sold in the end of 2019. It sounds like you were already thinking about Tooth Club. Did the idea for Tooth Club already exist, or was it just kind of like an idea and you hadn't kind of put a name to it? Or
the concept, definitely, the concept of Tooth Club existed. Me and my wife spent many a days kind of like brainstorming names and going through different names and coming up with kind of what the name looked like. And what we wanted something that was memorable within the name, something that could stand as a strong brand. And the concept of Tooth Club was really about being high street based. We knew we wanted to be high street based. We saw the dynamics of high streets changing. Some people say, the high street's dying or the high street's dead. Our view was that the dynamic is changing. So you're seeing more restaurants, coffee shops, that kind of thing. On a high street, the Next and the Marks and Spencers might be closing down, but it's regenerating with a different type of offering. And so for us, we wanted to be on high street. We knew that we needed a brand that stood out in the high street that wasn't associated to mine or anyone's name or even a location, because we knew we wanted to go kind of further afield. So we came up with the name of Tooth Club, and the concept was high street based, patient centric. And what that meant for us was we wanted to abolish all the old connotations and concepts around dental practices. And I have a very vivid reminder in my own head of what it was like going to the dentist. And I was hugely anxious. And you walk into this dental practice, there's a bulldog behind reception that doesn't even look up. He's doing some sort of paperwork, looking down, or answering the phone, won't even acknowledge you. You go and sit on these horrible chairs, right? Yeah, and you've got some toys in the corner, and you're not sure as a kid whether you're allowed to touch those toys or not. And the dentist surgery door will be open. You can hear a loud drilling sound, and that whole experience that I had as a childhood, I was like, we need to get over this. This is not the way dentistry should be in 2022 or 2020 at the time. And so the concept of Tooth Club's really different in that our clinics look really nice. We have very, very patient-centric, fantastic team at our front of house, and we spend a huge amount of time training those people on customer service. And we look at, the hotel sector, we look at retail sectors to see how do they do it. We've taken away a lot of the work that most receptionists would typically do and put it into the back office. The front of house is there to greet the patient and make sure the patient feels comfortable. Do they want a nice beverage? Do they want a tea, coffee, herbal tea? And then we have a menu that they can choose from. The clinic smells really nice. So as a child, one thing about dental practices, I can always smell that horrible disinfectant smell. And it's so distinctive. So within our reception area, we've got nice diffusers, really nice smells, TV screens, just to kind of make the patient feel really, really comfortable, because the time of anxiety where patient feels really anxious is when they're sitting in that waiting room, right? When you're in the dental chair, it's kind of just happening and it's kind of just going, you kind of just have to deal with it. But it's that dental waiting room experience that we have control over. And then also within our surgeries, our surgeries are really, really nice, all modern equipment. So dentists have good equipment to use and work with. We're modern in terms of digital scanning. And then we've got TVs. So, you can watch your favorite episode on Netflix whilst you're having your teeth done. So we just want to give patients a really, really nice experience. And that's just kind of built on and on and on, because when my wife says she hates getting her nails done, getting her hair done, she's like, it's quite a frustrating process. But she loves how they make her feel. So when she comes out of it, she feels really great. And that's what we want to do in dentistry. You know what? You mean, coming in, get your teeth whitened or get a hygiene treatment. We're going to make you feel really special. And hopefully that'll give you a very different experience of going to the dentist.
Oh, I love that. And it already sounds like totally different to any other practice I've ever been to. So well done to that. And you've touched on so many things, but well, personally, I love the fact that you've called it Tooth Club and not like something dental practice.
Yeah.
Because again, it distinguishes you. But it's still obvious that you're a dentist, because it's still the tooth word. But it's so much more fun and fresh, and that's really cool. And it's a cooler brand than just saying dental practice. Your practices are very Instagrammable, and I think we talked about this last time. And I believe you're heavily involved in the look and feel of the practice.
I am, and look, we don't use designers or anything to do these clinics, right? Yeah, it is literally we go to B&Q, buy a few testers of paint, put them up, and then decide which looks like the right color. And sometimes we get it wrong and we repaint the wall. But yeah, each clinic, we've toyed with the idea of having a model and replicating that model 20 times. But I've always fought against that, because what I want to do is make each clinic better and better. So make it even more Instagrammable. How are we going to make it even more unique? And sometimes people say to me, oh, it looks like a florist. Fair enough, you can see it as a florist. But our windows and our displays are done to try and advertise our dental products as well. But we do it in a much more softer way. And people come in and they take selfies behind our selfie mirrors or our flower walls or our blossom trees. The new thing is we've just got a phone box, and it's got love hearts in this phone box, and people love it. So patients come in, they're taking a selfie, putting it up on their Instagram. Guess what? We've just been advertised to 2,000 of their friends, who probably at least 10% will be our target market, and will come in and inquire. So it's those kinds of things that we kind of do that I think are a little bit different, but kind of makes us kind of different from some of our peers. But it also means that patients like coming in. They like coming into an Instagrammable area. They like taking selfies. They like taking pictures. And then it's a win-win, because we end up getting a bit of free promo with it as well.
Absolutely. I was going to say there probably aren't many practices out there where the patients want to take pictures of themselves there.
Yes.
And I guess a lot of your patients almost want to be seen there. Like it's the place to be seen, which is it's fantastic for a dental practice.
We get people that say
touched-
that we should have a makeup studio, because they're like, we want to take our selfie. There should be a makeup studio, so we can do our hair and makeup before we take our pictures. But we've not quite extended to those facilities just yet.
Yeah, no, that sounds like to get now down the dental practices and then maybe move into makeup. No, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
You've obviously talked about throughout you've talked about how important the patient experience is, and you've invested a lot in training. What does your training look like? Because obviously that's one of the areas where I think a lot of practices do struggle is getting their team trained on customer service.
Yeah.
Now I know you get involved in that. Is that right?
I do. I mean, I've designed, so we have a patient workflow. So we have, a number of different scenarios of a patient walking in, patient calling, emailing, and we have scripted some of it. We have process flown and drawn out every single part of our patient journey and our patient experience, all the way to discharging that patient and then recalling them back in. So that's been really important, and putting pen to paper and being able to demonstrate that to the team, so they've got something tangible so that they can go through. We use things like CRM systems as well, to help us kind of track our patient journey. But it comes down to training, and it comes down to people. And I can have the most glamorous, gorgeous dental practices, and build the most nicest practice, but if I've not got the right staff delivering the right service, it means nothing. And I sit here and I'll be really honest with you, we get it right probably about 70 to 80%. We're not at 100%. We're striving for 100%. And the way that we do that is that we've got processes, we've got training, and then we're policing it. So, we will do mystery shopper calls constantly. Every single week, there'll be 5 mystery shopper calls that go out to each practice to test how is the phone scripts, how's it going. We send people into our clinics to see how the experience is going. And we get some really, really honest feedback. Some things I hate reading and I dread sometimes opening them. But you know what? It allows us to get better, and we use that feedback to share with our teams. So we spend a huge amount of training from our nurses, our managers, our treatment coordinators, and our clinical team as well. And it's serving us well. And I think I'd still like to be striving to getting, certainly to the 80, 90%, but ultimately to 100%, because that one patient, if they've not been given the gold service, that for me is, we've let ourselves down. So it's really just about training, and then retention as well. We've got, touch wood, we've got a really, really good retention rate within our teams and our people. So keeping good people once you train them is so important. So we have lots of incentive schemes for our staff so that they feel appreciated and they feel valued and that they're part of something bigger.
Fantastic. How does the rest of your team feel about the word policing?
Do you know what? We use it very openly. We use it really openly. And because when we police it, what we do is we actually incentivize. So we're actually giving bonuses. So when one of my team is policing the process and doing a mystery shopper call, that person answers the phone correctly and follows the script and does what we set them to do, because the mystery shopper is also going to be a difficult patient. We're not going to make it easy. But yeah, they get an Amazon voucher as a way of saying thank you. And they get it instantly. Literally, it's ordered, next day it's delivered. So they actually quite enjoy it. And because it's not done in a malicious way. And where people haven't delivered it and people have answered, having a bit of a rough day, they've answered the phone and it hasn't stuck to the script, we bring them in for training. So, we're not using the harsh kind of ways of trying to demotivate people. You're never going to get someone answering the phone to perfection by demotivating them. You have to motivate them, whether that's the Amazon voucher or whether that's the training. You have to do it in a positive way. And being honest with you, there's some people you can train them and train and they don't want to be on the journey. Then is it the right fit? And we have to assess, are they the right fit for the business? But we always want to give people a chance. We always want to give them the training and support to be successful with us.
Fantastic. And I think that is a really useful insight, because I think a lot of practices, they might do training, but then it's very easy for the team to like slip back into their old routines because there's
Yes.
no kind of accountability. And
Yeah.
so, the positive spin that you put on it, you're not, you're using it to benefit the reception team or the front of house
Yeah.
team. You're not using
Yeah.
it to catch them out and
Yeah.
fire them. It's more like, how do we get
No.
you better? I think
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
genius.
And I tell you one thing with reception, because I've done reception myself, and as a management team, one thing we'd all do, we go and sit on reception for at least one day in the year. I mean, my operations manager does it far more frequently, but we go and sit on reception because until you've been on a reception, you've been at the front end, a patient in front of you, the phone going, and then someone else asks. It's a really, really difficult job, and we have tried to stream it out so that we're moving a lot of the processes into the back office. But it's still a really challenging job. When you pick up that phone, you don't know what you're going to get. And so keeping that empathy with the reception team, I think is really, really important. And being able to say, well, and do it and train with them and do it with them is really, really important in leading the way.
Fantastic. And so, when did the first Tooth Club open?
It opened July 2020. We opened in
July
Ipswich.
2020. Fantastic. And then, how quickly did the second and third practices open, or were they already in progress?
Yeah, I mean, we were no, we were. I think it was just fast. We wanted to get into the market, so we started buying, and we opened this. We opened another one in January 21, another one in January 22. But what we found on the journey, we're now at 10, and what we found during the journey was we were really good at doing squat practices. We weren't as great as doing the acquisitions, because when we were going to the acquisitions, we were changing an existing culture within a practice. We were trying to make things modernized when they weren't quite ready for it. We were trying to tweak the team who didn't want to be tweaked. And what we found is when we opened up a squat, we could set everything up from scratch, and we could open a brand new practice, literally set all the processes and systems how we wanted. And that served us really, really well. So what we then did is said, right, we're not going to do any more acquisitions. We're going to go and do full on squat practices only. So our strategy now predominantly is doing squat practices.
Just for squats. How many acquisitions did you do?
So we did 4 out of the 10. 4 were acquisitions.
And so they were more front loaded. So they were the sort of the first 4 out of
Yes.
6, maybe, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, when you're doing an acquisition, it takes about 6 to 9 months to get it all signed up and done. So it's quite a long, lengthy process when you're buying practice. With a squat, the minute I've got the lease, it takes me about 12 weeks to finish and open the doors. So
Wow.
so what we found is, we did a squat, but we were still kind of in legals for an acquisition that we'd agreed to months prior. So it kind of all intertwined. But yeah, I mean, we did it. At one point, we just said, look, we're not going to do any more acquisitions. Let's do the squats. The acquisition market's really tight because the cheaper practices or the lower revenue practices have got growth potential. You've got a lot of first-time buyers in that market, so it pushes up the price. The bigger, larger practices, which are already established, those practices have the big corporates in there bidding on them, so that pushes up the price. So we found a niche in more the middle space, the ones that are too expensive for the first-time buyer, but not big enough for the corporates. But when we were buying those, we just felt, why are we going to spend so much money when we can do a squat at probably a fraction of the price and do it really, really well and put it in the location we want it to be in? So, and that's serving us really well now.
Yeah, fantastic. The fact that you can turn around a squat practice in 3 months is incredible.
Yeah, so we've nailed it. We've mastered the art, and don't get me wrong, it's challenging, and loads of grey hairs to show for it. But yeah, absolutely. If once we've got the lease signed, 12 weeks, we're opening those doors.
Fantastic. So have you got a blueprint for a squat practice now? Have
Yeah,
you?
absolutely.
Is that a course maybe one day?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what? I did think about doing it. I did think about doing a course. But yeah, maybe one day. But right now, it's just go and build a few more practices and have fun doing it. One of our ethos as a business and our core principles as a business is all about having fun and making the journey really positive and having a good time doing it. Life's too short. No one wants to come to work miserable. So one of our core principles is have fun, and we have fun every single day, even where on some of the tough days, right? Yeah, we're still laughing. So because from my banking days, I never want this to feel that mundane routine. I don't want it to feel like work. I want to just come and have fun and do some really great things.
Awesome, that's fantastic. So you've already mentioned, obviously, you're at 10 locations now.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself getting? Like, what is kind of like the future for Tooth Club?
Yeah, I get asked this a lot, and one of the principles I stick by: if we ever have the choice of being the biggest or the best, we're always going to choose being the best. So if I find that trying to grow this scale starts to deteriorate in our service offering, there will be a stop point where we stop. I'm very fortunate; we've got a really, really good team. We've built our processes, which we feel are really scalable. So we're going to keep going. We've got 2 more pipeline this year. And I'm hoping that we're actually going to open like middle of December. The timings have just fallen that way, so we're going to open two more this year, and I hope at least 3 more next year. So, and if all aligns, we'll do more, and the concept will keep growing. But it's primarily good high street locations where people need good dentistry.
Fantastic. And where are the next 2 locations? Can you reveal that yet?
Yes, absolutely. So we've got one in Bromley and we've got one in Romford. So
Fantastic.
and our overall strategy is trying to keep it Hertfordshire, Essex, and Kent is kind of the just geographically, from being able to manage from an operations perspective. We've tried to keep those kind of as our core strategy.
Brilliant. And in terms of like how you structure the company, is it quite heavily sort of centrally resourced or central services, or is it very much the individual practices?
No, it's very much individual practices. We have a support centre. But our practices are KPI led, so we try and give them the autonomy as much as possible to go and make decisions and do things and serve the patients. But I was really conscious what we don't want to do is give them tons of paperwork and spreadsheets to fill out, because I can't sit there and be in front of a patient and make sure that patient's getting the right experience, or help the dentist, if they need something. So what we try and do is try and give the practice managers freedom, but then support where they need it. So things like marketing and things like that. The local level marketing, great, but we're kind of from a social media, Google, we kind of take care of all of that centrally. Even from a compliance perspective, we make sure that large majority of the compliance is done centrally, and the managers really just focus on compliance, cross-infection standards, stuff that's required in practice. So they're not having to go and chase things like DBSs or contracts. It's all done in the back end, so they've got it if they need it, but they can really focus on what's important, which is the patient.
Brilliant, love that. And now, see, the rate at which you're growing obviously takes a lot of cash.
Yes.
So where's the cash coming from? Is it sort of self-funded, debt-funded, or is it VC? Is there VC? Now,
yeah.
this is your finance background coming to a forte here.
Yeah, and it's nothing as exciting as VC. So my view has always been, I want to be I want to push the debt element as far as I can, because giving up equity too early, is very costly. So right now it's all debt. We've got some really good finance partners that we've worked with to acquire that debt. But funding's hard. I think with the way the markets are right now, interest rates going up, I think it's going to get harder. It's going to get more and more challenging. But typically the equipment in our clinics is asset financed, and then the kind of refurbishment cost of a squat practice. We have lenders that provide us unsecured lending, and touch wood, the business is also doing well. So the business is generating cash that allows us to pay and continue to grow. But we're always looking for funding and finance partners. But yeah, we haven't got any private equity or venture capitalists or anyone involved as yet. We go through periods of looking at things, but nothing right now.
No, fantastic. So that's kind of like a bit of a left field question, because Patient Boost, we have a lot of clients in the UK, but we are trying to push into the US. And now in the US, I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but there's big corporates, DSOs, dental service organizations. There's lots of VC money over there, and obviously probably similar to the corporates over here. And just kind of curious how that element of like dentistry works. But no, it sounds like you're doing, for the size you are, sounds like they're taking the smart route, and like you say, not giving up any to strangers right just yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there's a real passion in a part of me that says, look, let's take this to 50 practices. Let's get Tooth Club on every single high street. But there's a couple of things that keep me back. Right, one is making sure that we deliver excellence and we can continue to grow the model in an excellent way. So better rather than larger. But it's also the funding element of it. Is going that big. Is it the right strategy for us? We toy with that every single day, and it's something that we're constantly thinking about. We've been approached by a few different people saying, look, can we invest right now? It's like, let's prove out this concept. Let's push to get to 15 if we can on a debt basis, and then see where we want to go on from the 15.
Fantastic. And I have a funny feeling that you won't be stopping at 15. It's going to keep going.
Yeah.
Love that. So I think you kind of touched on it before, but like, how has your career in finance helped you? Like, how did it prepare you? Is it still benefiting you from running the group?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the good things is, especially during my time at Goldman, I was running a very, very large team, globally. And those experiences of working with people from a diverse background, being able to manage large scale projects, I saw within our own function of how you scale up so that you're not pulled into all the detail, how you make people feel appreciated, you're motivated, because dentistry it's a people business. The whole thing is about people, whether it's the patients, whether it's the staff, the dentist, it's all about people. And people feel good when they're supported, when they feel motivated, they've got processes so they know what they're doing, so they're not feeling like they're in limbo. And those are the kinds of things that I feel that I've been able to bring to Tooth Club. And the finance side of things means that I can answer things. I can understand the business side of things very quickly. I can get into the detail very quickly and then pull myself out. But then the non-finance, the anxious patient side of me allows me to go in more clinically and be able to have the patient insight into things. And then the team as well, because the other side of this is I don't have the clinical experience. I've not been to dental school. We've got a great clinical director that provides great support to our clinicians and our clinical team. So that kind of side gets covered. But I think it's being able to work as a team, work with people, motivating people has always stood me well. And I did that at Goldman's and I do it at Tooth Club.
Fantastic. And you just brought something up that I was going to ask you is, do you think your lack of experience within dentistry has been a hindrance or a benefit?
Yeah. It's funny. I probably drive the clinicians crazy because I will ask every dumb question going, right? And at the start, it's like, what is composite? What is amalgam? I will ask every dumb question. If there's something someone says to me I don't understand, I have this thing where I'm like, what does that mean? I don't care if I look silly. And that's something that's actually stood me well. I think it's always stood me well, the fact that I'm not clinical, because I'm able to take a step back and have a look at things from a very, very different angle. I've got lots of people in my team that look at things very clinically, look at things that are we doing things right from a GDC, from a compliance perspective. And what I'm getting more of this, but do we have enough people in our business that look at things from a patient experience and how patients see things? So I'm always flying that flag. And what I think it allows me to do is get the dentist thinking from a patient perspective and how they're feeling. So how do we communicate to them? How do we make them feel, when you're in their mouth for an hour, right? Have you said they can raise their hand to say stop? Just those things, and giving those few tools to a patient, so important. Have you, when they walk in, have you told them, what do you want to pick on Netflix? Because all of these things are so important. So in answer to your question, I think it's personally, I think it stood me very well not being clinical, but there's no way I could do this job without the excellent clinical team that I've got.
Absolutely, because I'm just thinking like you've kind of come in kind of saying, we're still relatively new to dentistry in the grand scheme of things, and we don't look at it, we're not fixed in certain ways. We're kind of open-minded. Same for you. You're not thinking, right, this is what a dental practice has to look like. You're thinking, why does it look like that? Like, why does it smell like this, and why does it terrify people? Like, I think that's probably key to success, really. I think.
And it's things like, why do we take impressions, right? Impressions, old school impressions, when you've got putty in your mouth, right? Yeah, like it makes you gag. It's such an awful experience. We've got scanners, scan them. Right, yeah, it's going to get to the lab within 30 minutes, or I think it's almost instant actually. Go straight to the lab. The lab got the work to start making the work. It isn't going to get lost in the post. You're not made a patient feel awful doing impressions, and modernizing. So those kinds of things I think help me get clinicians on board, because I really see the value of those kinds of things. Whereas if I was an old school dentist, I think, I can just take some impressions. What's the point? So I think those things certainly help and help get the clinician on board. But we're a business that always always like to try new things and try new concepts. And, you know, if there is a new scanner or there's a new kind of software, you know, we'll try it. You know, we're open to it. We'll try it. If it works, great, and we'll roll it out across the group. But equally, we're not scared to say, actually, this doesn't work. And you know what? Thank you, but no, thank you.
Fantastic. That is really awesome, Conal. And then again, you keep saying things like keep going. We're going to go deeper and deeper. How do you approach the relationship between the practices and the dental labs?
Yeah.
Like, is it a group of dental labs that you're working with, or is it individual labs based on where those location? Like, how does that work?
It's a really, really good question. So we originally started saying, let's keep this local, let the dentists decide which labs they go to. And what we found is our clinicians were getting frustrated with certain labs. They were asking us, well, what labs should we use? So what we did is we used that as an opportunity to kind of talk to our team, our clinical team, and they decided actually we wanted to centralize the lab. So it came very much from, you know, we want to use fewer labs. Let's negotiate good discounts with those labs and see how they go. So we have a preferred supplier list of labs that we use. And you know, every lab can, you know, like any business, there's things that can go wrong. So we always encourage our teams to speak to the lab first. But if we're seeing reoccurring issues and thematical issues across the same labs, we will replace labs. But on the most part, we use really, really good a really good set of labs that are really committed. It's also allowed us to start building real relationships with the individual labs as well. It's not just a cost thing; it's a relationship thing. It's a quality of work thing. So it's really allowed us to start building relationships with those certain labs, because you can have those relationships with 10, 11 labs. You can't have those relationships when you've got 50 labs that you're reaching out to and sending random work to. So yeah, I mean that serves us well. And typically we try and send as much digital as we can. That's the core of what we want to do.
No, that's fantastic. And yeah, because I think the dental labs are sometimes like the, you know, unsung heroes of the dental industry, because you don't really think about them. It's always the dentist or the team or the dental practice, and you know, without those guys in the background that are, you know, making everything that the patient needs, you wouldn't get anywhere.
No, absolutely. And especially the old school impressions as well. Right? You know, they're very reliant on dentists taking good impressions and being able to send it out and giving them the detail that they need. So definitely, I think they do. They certainly do a good job.
Yeah, awesome, brilliant. So you're probably one of the best people to ask this. So if there's anyone listening that is thinking about buying or starting a dental practice, well, what would be your number one piece of advice?
Do it. Don't think too much and just go and do it. You know, put one foot in front of the other, because you know, dental is a great industry. It really, really is. It's personally very rewarding. Financially, it can be very rewarding as well. You know, and I think you just have to do it. I'd certainly say it's not a quick win. It's not an easy business to get into, because you're always very torn between commerciality and actually, you know, this is a healthcare sector and it's a healthcare business. The patient's needs comes first. And we have a saying in our business that's, you know, would you do that treatment on your mum? If the answer is yes, right. If it's not, you say no. So you know, it's not an easy business, but I'd certainly say it's a great business to get involved in. It's you know, it's changing, it's developing. There's you know, the patient or the consumer demands of what they expect from a dental practice are changing. Huge growth in the cosmetic space, with people being on Zoom calls, people kind of watching reality TV shows. So I think it's a really, really exciting place for someone to get into. You know, I've spoken about this on another podcast as well, but within dentistry, I think over the next few years, I think you're going to see so much more AI and kind of, you know, even around climate change products and disposable items and things like that changing. I think it's really exciting. So if you want to get into dentistry, 100% recommend it. I think there's still space for people to get involved. I don't think it's saturated by any means, but just don't expect it to be a quick win. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Fantastic. That is great. That's great advice for any business owner.
Yeah.
So, and if I was a first time buyer or first time practice owner coming to you, would you recommend buying or squat?
Oh, do you know? I'd say squat. I'd definitely say squat. And the reason that I'd say squat is because if you're a good clinician and you're setting up in the right location with a good team, and you're willing to put in the first 6 months of real graft, maybe 6 months to a year of real graft, and building up your patient base, your debt will be a lot less than if you're going to buy another established practice. I think the issues with buying a practice is a lot of goodwill that's associated with individual clinicians, and I think that can pose a risk when you're transferring over. I don't think you can go in and quickly transform a practice and expect not to lose patients. You have to do everything very, very, very slowly. If there's a character that's been in the team for a long time that isn't on your journey, that's quite difficult to get over. Whereas actually, if you're committed to a year, build a practice how you want it, build it in the location you want it in, do your research, because you need to make sure there's demand for dentistry there, that you're going to get the footfall in that you need. So I think make sure you do your research, but I'd always say a squat practice, because it's fun, it's a real project, and ultimately, your debt on it will be a lot less than if you're buying a good established practice.
Fantastic. I love the fact that you're like, would you do the treatment on your mum?
Yes.
That's a good one.
Mike, we're very, very direct in this business. We literally say it how it is. There's no filters. We just say it how it is. And everyone's that grounded in the business, my practice manager will call me up and tell me, this is X. And I'm like, good. Do you know what? Because we don't do grey in this business. It's black or white. Let's be really clear about what we're saying so we can help our practices. So we are a bit blunt.
No, that's awesome. I've been telling people to treat every phone call like it's your gran. Like the extra bit of attentive. They don't always know what they're asking for, so you've got to kind of coax it out of them. But that's brilliant. And one of the things in Patient Boost is don't be a dick. Now, yes. I feel like that would probably apply to your business as well. It might not be written on the wall, but that kind of mentality.
Yeah, I'm gonna steal the thing that you just said about the gran. Answer every phone like a gran. I'm actually gonna steal that off you.
I just feel like if you assumed everyone on the other side was your gran, you'd be a bit more relaxed with them. You'd take your time with them. Yeah. You wouldn't get frustrated because they're you're 90-odd-year-old man, so you're not gonna So
exactly.
You can have that one for free.
I think so. No, that's certainly going into our training pack for sure.
You just have to cite me as the original. Absolutely. So if anyone listening would like to learn more about you or Tooth Club, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, look, join my LinkedIn. I like posting on LinkedIn. Follow our Instagram at Tooth Club UK, or look me up on LinkedIn and follow our journey. And I'm always happy to chat and answer questions and help anyone. So drop me a message.
Brilliant. Well, Kunal, thank you so much for your time today. Again, really, really appreciate it. Fantastic content. There's so much to unpack here.
Thanks, Mike.
And
thanks for
I
having
can't wait
me on.
to share this with the group. Anytime. We'll have to get you on. We'll get you on when you're at 20 practices.
Yeah, brilliant.
And we'll be the difference between running 10 and 20 practices with Kunal.
Yeah, you'll see a few more grey hairs, I'm sure.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, man, and enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon.